We're here to celebrate the award of the Arab British Centre for Arab Culture, which is awarded to a young, achieving artist who is at the beginning of his or her career. And this year, 2013, is the first time we've dedicated this prize specifically to an individual.
I got an invitation from the Arab British Centre to be on the judging panel for this award. I didn't quite realise the enormity of the task until a huge folder arrived with 30-odd files in it of the candidates, and that suddenly made me realise what a huge task it was, particularly the questions of how you judge one cultural activity against another. For example, we had one person who was specialising in educating British people about Arab cookery, and others doing fine art, music, films, all sorts of things. The entries that made the shortlist were really extremely varied. We had a filmmaker, a playwright, a couple of musicians, somebody who was doing a website, and again, the question is how you then sort of weigh one against another and pick a winner.
The whole purpose of the Arab British Centre is to spread knowledge of Arab culture, art, music, literature, and we'd like to encourage young people working in this country.
It seems to me that the coming together of people in artistic endeavour is one of the great things about being human. And we learn so much from each other by sharing culture. It is through culture that we learn about the other. It's one of the things that I think reminds us of the things that we all have in common, the ways in which we're the same as well as different. And so it was very, very pleasurable indeed to see what is happening in the artistic and creative world, involving so many people, British and Arab, but sharing and excited by, cross-cultural activity. It was interesting to see the great breadth of activity in the cultural field, through all sorts of things, using new media, the whole business of creating cultural websites, the covering dance, theatre, music, the voice, but also in instruments, the painting, sculpture. I mean, I can't begin to tell you, photography, literature. It was just really fantastic. And reading about the work and lives of the people who were contenders was just a wonderful experience. We want to make special mention of two people who didn't make that shortlist of 6, but who were just doing such fantastic things that we felt that they deserved to get a special mention here tonight anyway. And that was Beau Beausoleil, a poet and bookseller who runs a project called the Al-Mutabi Street Project. And you all know that Al-Mutabi Street in Baghdad is the famous street of booksellers, but it's more than that. It's a kind of place of debate and symbolism and so much more than even how we think of it as being the street of bookselling. We also just wanted to mention Sarah Al-Hamid, a writer of cookery books. And cuisine is one of the great things in cultures, and I just want to say that we had such joy thinking about her, and would have squeezed her in if there had been a way of doing so, but so we just want to give her a mention because she's just very remarkable. I ended up with a short list of 6. Amin Matalka is a filmmaker. He really is quite remarkable in the success that he's now enjoying. In fact, he graduated from the American Film Institute. He's directed 3 feature films, 27 short films, over 20 feature screenplays, and is really on the way to becoming a hugely successful filmmaker. Then we have Dana Abdullah. And Dana Abdullah is shortlisted because incredibly young woman, and yet here she is. She's set up an extraordinary project called Kalimat, and it's a blog website on matters cultural, and if you take a look at it, it's really rather wonderful. It's in its early days, but we think it's going to be a really rather extraordinary contributor to our cultural world. Our next finalist is Daniel Gorman, who co-founded Real Festivals. Daniel Gorman runs film festivals in different parts of the world, really showing wonderful films from the Arab world. He also is a great promoter of poetry too, but really it's film work that brought him into this finalist category, because again, bringing new audiences to the work of Arab creators, and we just felt that it was an exciting and fantastic thing that he was doing. Hassan Abdulrazzak. The play that really brought Hassan to public attention was his first full-length play, Baghdad Wedding, which was back in 2007. It premiered at the Soho Theatre. It had really extraordinary reviews. And then it's a play that switches between London and Baghdad from 1998 to 2005, so covering rather important years, as we would all remark. And it really, in many ways, again, kind of was a source of amazement and fascination to British theatre-going audiences, but also was a source of shock, but also engagement for British Arab audiences. And then I have Khayyam Alam. But Khayyam is an oud player, and he is the most magical, wonderful musician. And he began, he basically has created a whole lot of work. I mean, he worked in the department's Middle Eastern music with their ensemble there, and provided music for lots of events for us at SOAS. But he has now moved into a whole different league, where he's actually combining his oud playing with being a musical personality in the kind of rock drummer, oud player, crossing that divide between rock music and traditional Arabic music. And so it's that synthesis that is so interesting, where he does both, but also sometimes finds ways of bringing it together. And then a name that will be familiar to this room, to many of you, Reem Kalani. And in some ways, Reem Kalani is not a newcomer, but what a remarkable woman. A woman whose voice is quite extraordinary, unique, and no wonder that she is so celebrated in the Arab community. But what she's been doing in recent times is that in 2012, she broadcast a set of programs called Songs for Tahrir, and it was researched, written and presented by her, and it was about her experiences in Cairo from the beginning of the revolution in 2011. And the BBC's figures suggest 1 million people listened to this, and the majority of them are not from the Arab community. So it's that reaching out was one of the things that we were also looking for, a way of bringing new people to the exquisite and wonderful music that comes out of the Arab world that so few people know anything about. Now, you can imagine, those are the 6 people who were shortlisted for the last round. It was very hard for us to get from that moment. Getting down to the 6 was hard enough, but getting from the 6 to 1 was incredibly difficult. And if we were to give you our reasons, it would, in some ways, be difficult because these things are visceral. But we really did feel that this prize had to be identifying someone at perhaps an early stage of their career, but who we think is going to go on to great things. Somebody who really is doing what was our criterion and kept having to revisit it. What is it that we're supposed to be rewarding? And the idea was that we had to be looking for the most constructive contribution to British understanding of Arab culture and Arab life and work that's been in the last 2 years. And so I now announce to you that the winner of the prize is the playwright, Hassan Abdulrazzak.
huge honor for me, and particularly this is the first time that this award has been given to individuals. I'm really happy that I'm the first to get this. When the shortlist was published, it was so intimidating because the people on it are just amazing, and I really admire a lot of them, particularly ones I've worked with before, like Dan Gorman, who was so generous to let me show a bit of my play in his real festival. Although if you look at everybody's website, mine was very snazzy, so probably I need the money. So I became a playwright for a variety of reasons. I have obviously a love for theatre and literature, but also one of the motivations was, I grew up as a kid in the West. You'd watch films like Back to the Future as a kid, and suddenly there'd be a van of Libyan terrorists of all things that appear and shoot everybody. And so I got, growing up, I got a bit tired of these kind of simple depictions. And even in the theatre where you'd expect things to be a bit more nuanced, the Arab characters were often sort of either kind of angry victims or ciphers who sort of had some enigmatic lines to say to the main hero as they moves the plot along. And so I really wanted to write, hopefully engaging characters, complex characters that show a different side to Arabs. Not necessarily good characters to counter the bad. I think this kind of simplicity doesn't really interest me. My characters can, have really kind of terrible secrets and done terrible things in their past, but just complex and engaging and different. And I hope I've done that, and I want to continue doing that. I feel really honored to win the award for the Arab British Centre, the Cultural Award for 2013, especially that this is the first time it's being given to an individual rather than organization, and to be the first to receive that particular award is really, it's a great honor, and I'm very proud to have it. Particularly it highlights the work that I've done to hopefully promote a better image of what Arabs are like, and to give a better image of what they're like in the West. I think there is a need for Arab writers to represent themselves and their culture. No writer should necessarily feel that they are, spokesmen, and I certainly don't feel that. I wouldn't put my place in such a position. But just by virtue of being an Arab, I write about fellow Arabs, and they could be good characters, they could be bad characters, and kind of to simplify them. But what I really want to do is to write complex characters, engaging characters that stand up, that give a great story, and that stand up to the best of what theatre can offer to audience worldwide.
In a way, I think that for me was one of the sort of key points, really, that he was giving a picture of Arabs which was both real and perhaps unexpected, and certainly not stereotyped.
We were delighted with the choice of the panel. Hassan Abdulrazzak, an extraordinary young playwright whose plays The Prophet and Arab Nights made a huge impact on British audiences, and therefore contributed very much to what we are working for, an intercultural exchange between the British and the Arab world.